Jansen Harris here with the Just Good Network. We're talking Julio Jones and some of his best games of his career. Top 5 Julio Jones games, in my opinion. Also, we're going to ask Sean Fowler, also with the Just Good Network, former football player, his perspective on the top 5 Julio Jones games of his career. And let me just tell you guys, there's so many to choose from that these 5, it was so close. I think a couple of them are obvious, but it was really close for me to break down my list, and I'm intrigued to hear Sean Fowler's list as well. So let's start at number 5 in his magical 2015 season, which arguably, if they actually gave it to wide receivers, he could have won the MVP. Or even 2016. He has so many great seasons. Just too bad they don't give it to wide receivers. But 2015, he killed Tampa Bay. Matt Ryan targeted him 13 times, caught 12 balls. They tried double teaming him. They tried zone. Didn't work out. 162 yards receiving and a touchdown. Absolutely was a killer. Let's talk about 2014 game against Green Bay. They lost that one, but it was a Monday Night Football game at Lambeau Field. He had 11 catches, 259 yards, 23 yards a catch. Absolute beast. And to put that in perspective, he had almost to 100 yards in the first half. Just completely dominated. Sam Shields had a big touchdown over him. It was just getting ugly. That he was unstoppable. That prior week, he had another big game, and in Week 12 and Week 13, he combined for 448 yards receiving in 2 games. Can you believe that? Julio Jones, straight balling. Now, let's go to our third best game of Julio Jones' career from my perspective. Let's go to 2018. Not too long ago, they lost to the Bengals. It was a duel between Andy Dalton and Matt Ryan. Julio Jones against A.J. Green. Julio, of course, put on an absolute show. 9 catches, 173 yards. A couple things stood out to me in that game was how effective he was and clutch he was on third downs, especially a 3rd and 2 and a 3rd and 7 from Matt Ryan. Had a huge game. Julio Jones, too bad they didn't get the victory in that one. They were outdueled. Defense was looking awful. Number 2, Tampa Bay is back on this list. Week 11, 2017. Julio Jones destroyed Tampa again, this time for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. A clutch 3rd down catch and one from Sanu for 51 yards. The Dome was going crazy. 2 touchdowns total, and both of them were in the first half. Julio Jones was straight balling, and he makes it look easy. At the end of the day, Julio Jones has had so many games where he's facing double teams, sometimes triple teams, and he is able to defeat that and get his receiving yards. And the only thing you can really say about this man, especially in this game, was, dang, Julio, we really wanted to see you get 3 touchdowns. We haven't really seen that. Not really of a touchdown machine, but Julio Jones gets the yards and is arguably one of the top 10, maybe even top 5 receivers of all time. And number 1, the absolute game of games for my list, a classic Julio Jones game. 12 receptions. You guys remember this one against Carolina. 12 receptions, over 300 yards, 25 yards per catch. He killed them, boys. Worley, he got mossed a couple times by Julio. It just was crazy. A big 3rd and 17 completion. Call him Mr. 3rd down. And then he stiff-armed somebody on a big touchdown play. Julio Jones was in straight GOAT mode. He looked like Jerry Rice. He looked like Randy Moss. He looked like Terrell Owens. He looked like Marvin Harrison. He was just absolutely tearing it apart. So that was my top 5 Julio Jones games. You guys let me know below. Comment, like, subscribe to the Just Good Network, especially you Falcon fans and you Julio Jones fans. Let me know what top games maybe I missed out on. But in a couple moments, Sean Fowler, also with the Just Good Network, our football analyst, he's going to give us his top 5 Julio Jones games of his career. I'm Jansen Harris. And we are back. I told you guys Sean Fowler was going to be in the building. He knows the Falcons in and out. Again, Football Insider, also played football, so he gives you both the perspectives. What's up, Sean? And tell us, man, some of your top Julio Jones games.
What's up, Jansen? Good to hear from you, man. Julio Jones, as you know, I'm a Falcons fan, man. Obviously, we're here in Atlanta, so we're going to cover the Falcons even more extensively. So Julio Jones, man, he had a lot of great games, man. You ready?
Absolutely. All
right. Number 3, 2017, offensive coordinator Steve Sarkistan. I think I said his name right. Obviously, we don't have it no more, but I think it was week 12. They played the Buccaneers. Actually, I think it was week 7. They played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Julio had 12 receptions, over 230-plus yards, and also 2 touchdowns. He was just unstoppable that game, Jansen. Remember, just like it was yesterday, because, that was the year after the Super Bowl. If you remember the Falcons, when they went to the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, the Falcons had like one of the best offenses of all time. So when Sark came in, it was kind of like a little slow. He wasn't really getting players as involved like he did with Kyle Shanahan. But I mean, this game, at least halfway through the season, it showed, the Falcons still have that talent, even with the new offensive coordinator. If you can get Julio, getting over 230-plus receiving yards and over 12 receptions as well, then maybe the best is yet to come. So that's my number 3. For number 2, I have when Julio faced off in the NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers. 9 receptions, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. For me, this is ranked number 2 because, again, it showed Julio in that 2016 season when they went to the Super Bowl that he was clearly the best receiver. I know it's always Julio versus AB, you know what I mean? Of course, you can go with either one, but to me, I feel like when Julio's on top and he's really getting after it, you can't really stop him. I mean, he's still fast. He runs a 4.3, I still think, to this day, especially at that time. The Green Bay Packers, the Falcons ended up blowing them out 44-21. Again, 180 receiving yards in the NFC Championship game. He was just toying with Green Bay. And if you guys remember, I remember his last touchdown that he had was he took like a drag route, 65 yards for a touchdown. Just like he was just a bully towards those Green Bay defenders. And number 1, Jansen, I think you might know this one. 2016, the same season, Julio, 12 receptions, 300 yards, and 1 touchdown against the Carolina Panthers. I think Ben Wickery was the quarterback that was covering that game. He was released the next day, Jansen. So obviously, if you give up 300 yards to a receiver in a game, this isn't mad, Jansen. This is the NFL.
Absolutely.
So I think that's definitely my favorite game. Again, that's the same as the Falcons went to the Super Bowl. Julio exploded. And I'll just say this real quick as well. I'm ending off with this. A lot of people always say, Julio is great and all, but he doesn't really score touchdowns. It's not always about the touchdowns because the Falcons at that time had a plethora of weapons. You got a Mohamed Sanu, Taylor Gabriel, Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman. It's about those yards, you know what I mean? Because the yards is what's the most consistent thing. I can get a lot of touchdowns in the red zone if I'm that type of dude, but again, these games, Julio had basically 200, 300 yards, and he's killing folks. And again, that 300-yard game where he had 12 receptions, he only had 1 touchdown, but still, he dismantled the Carolina Panthers. They had to get I think they got a new defensive back coach after that game too, as well. So for Julio Jones, man, I still think today I still have him as the best overall receiver just because of what he can do. It just depends if Matt Ryan's being consistent, throwing him, some good passes. But those are my top 3 Julio Jones games, man, and hopefully the best is yet to come still with the Falcons.
Appreciate it, Sean. We knew you would give a great breakdown. That's why we called you up. That was Sean Fowler, Jansen Harris, Just Good Network.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.